WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Visit Bloomington. Bloomington, Indiana is home to a wide range of live music events and venues. More info on upcoming performances at musicbloomington.com.
This is WFYI News Now. It's December 21st, and I'm Darian Benson. Later in the show, school districts in Marion County are now offering some of the highest pay for first-year teachers.
8 of the 11 Marion County districts now offer a starting salary of at least $50,000.
My conversation with education editor Eric Weddle is coming up, but first, these headlines. Plans for the redevelopment of Circle Center Mall are underway. Jill Sheridan reports on the move to revitalize the space in the heart of downtown Indianapolis.
It was last year when the Circle Center Development Company, a partnership of investors that runs the mall, solicited ideas for redevelopment. Hendricks Commercial Properties, the developer behind BottleWorks, offered up a mixed-use vision. President and CEO Rob Gerbitz says the overall growth of downtown investment influenced their proposal.
This is an opportunity to be a connector with what we would see it becoming into the future.
The mall opened in the mid-'90s and thrived for years. Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett says the new redevelopment plans, which include retail, entertainment, and housing, will be a better fit.
By changing an urban downtown mall into a multifaceted, multi-purpose downtown destination location.
A final agreement that includes city-backed tax credits and state support has not been finalized. I'm Jill Sheridan.
Flooding could become the tipping point for people considering moving out of their neighborhoods in Indiana. That's according to a new study by the First Street Foundation, a nonprofit risk mitigation research group. Rebecca Thiel reports it's projected that most of the population loss due to flooding in the next 30 years will be in the Northeast and Great Lakes states.
Jeremy Porter with First Street Foundation says Great Lakes states like Indiana are sometimes thought of as climate havens, mostly free from things like hurricanes and wildfires. But frequent flooding can cause people to move out of neighborhoods in these states, especially if there are better opportunities elsewhere.
So it ends up being amplified as just another factor that pushes people out of these communities.
Neighborhoods that lose population often lose tax revenue for things like schools. But Hoosiers might not move too far. The study found that most people in the U.S. move within their own county to escape flooding, rather than to a new county or state. And that's usually only those who can afford to move. Porter says buyout programs can give lower-income residents better opportunities and can help local governments focus their energies on the homes that can be saved from flooding. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Rebecca Thiel.
Porter says the good news is that more people are considering the climate risks when moving to a new home, as companies like Redfin and Zillow add that information to listings. And Ohio voters said yes to citizen-led ballot initiatives on abortion rights and the legalization of cannabis in November. Why doesn't Indiana have a similar option? That's a question our listeners wanted to know through the Civically Indiana project from Indiana Public Broadcasting. Abigail Ruman reports it would require a change to the state constitution, but lawmakers haven't shown interest.
Indiana is one of 24 states with no mechanism for a citizen-led effort to put an initiative on the ballot. Randall Shepard is the former Chief Justice of the Indiana Supreme Court and senior judge at the Indiana Court of Appeals. He says the state's larger attitude was that the legislature should be making decisions, a sentiment expressed at Indiana's last constitutional convention in 1851.
One of the members stood up on the floor and said, no, that's what we've been hired to do. We shouldn't shove this off on our fellow citizens. They've got plenty to do.
To change the state's constitution, the General Assembly would have to approve a joint resolution with the proposed change in 2 different years, with a general election occurring between the times that the resolution is approved. Then the change is put to a public vote. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
To take part in the Civically Indiana project or find more stories like this, go to ipbs.org/civicallyindiana. And for our final story today, the starting salaries for teachers at the majority of Marion County school districts reached at least $50,000 for this school year. I sat down with Eric Weddle, the editor of our education desk, to find out how and why most teachers will get a raise this school year. Before we get into how much money teachers are making, let's back up.
Okay.
Most people at their jobs, if they receive a good evaluation or a promotion, they get a raise. How does it work for teachers?
Yeah, so a full-time teacher, they have a contract, and that's where this raise would be detailed. And it's negotiated between a school district and the union that represents the teachers in that district. And the process is called collective bargaining. Over the years, lawmakers have greatly reduced what teachers can bargain for. Now it's just salaries, wages, benefits, and that pay raise. Right now, there are 305 bargaining units in the state, and those are mostly all school corporations. Good to note that not all public educators are covered by a union's collective bargaining agreement. There are no charter schools in the state that do this.
Okay, how does the negotiation turn into a pay raise for teachers?
So state law dictates that the increase to a base salary for a full-time teacher can depend on 5 factors, and that's years of experience, performance or evaluation rating, and the academic needs of students. And that would be like if a district has had trouble hiring like a high-level math teacher, and they have one, they could give that educator a raise so they make sure that they stay. But teachers who get one of the lowest 2 ratings on their performance evaluation, which is needs improvement or ineffective in a prior year, they cannot get a raise.
Can you walk me through an example of how a teacher would get an increase based on those factors?
Sure. So Amelia Pack-Harvey from Chalkbeat, Indiana, and we read through all the Marion County contracts to see what was in them. And the Lawrence Township Schools contract actually has a very clear example I can explain of how they get a raise there. So a teacher there who is highly rated, they would get $2,000. If they've been there for at least 6 years with their experience, they would get another $2,000. And if they ended up getting a master's degree in their content area, like math or English, they could get another $2,000 for a total of $6,000 in a single year increase to their base salary.
So let's talk about the salaries for Marion County teachers. What is the starting teacher pay?
So after this last round of collective bargaining agreements, 8 of the 11 Marion County districts now offer a starting salary of at least $50,000. Indianapolis Public Schools, they used to have the highest starting salary before this year, but now Wayne Township Schools, they are offering the highest for first-time educators at $52,500.
Why is there so much focus on starting pay for those first-time teachers?
Yeah, so I asked that same question to Wayne Township Superintendent Jeff Butts, and this is what he told me.
Brand new teachers coming into the profession, they're going to look at that starting salary. They don't necessarily look at the average salary or the top end salary. So that is an area that as we're trying to attract new teachers, that we want to make sure that we stay competitive on that starting salary.
So we know the starting salaries of teachers. What do we know about how much teachers are making overall?
So right now, the average teacher salary in Indiana for the previous school year was $58,531, according to a new state report. Governor Eric Holcomb, he has supported getting the average up to $60,000. Now, right now, according to last year's data, most Marion County school districts already report an average salaries above $60,000.
Okay, what's next?
So most teachers are under a contract that is for this school year and next year. So they will not be bargaining for contracts for 2 more years, but there are some school districts, a few in Marion County and across the state, that will have a 1-year contract, and they will again bargain for a salary increase starting next fall.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks a lot.
To read more about Marion County teacher pay, go to wfyi.org/news. That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Aubriana Herron, Drew Dodlin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Darian Benson. Our news director is Sarah Neal Estes. If you liked today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. And we've got a long weekend for the holidays, so we're off Friday and Monday, but we'll be back right after Christmas.
WFYI podcasts are brought to you by Visit Bloomington. Bloomington, Indiana is home to a wide range of live music events and venues. More info on upcoming performances at musicbloomington.com.